Hello and welcome to another edition of the Kings of Anglia Ipswich Town podcast. My name is Andy Warren and I'm joined by Stuart Watson and Ross Halls on this most joyous of days. It's a wonderful day and you all know why. I've got a blue tick on Twitter. I've been verified. Look at their little faces. Everyone's absolutely buzzing. What a day. What do you think of that?
Where's that come from?
Just Twitter, mate. No.
Just decided. Someone just decides one
just
day.
Twitter, Mr. Twitter.
Just big deal. Andy Warren, get him a blue tick.
I got an email at... Let's have a look at the time on this. They decided at 1:49 a.m. this morning to send me an email that said, guess who's verified, with a question mark. And I received the email and I thought, oh, it's Stuart Watson, isn't it? They're Twitter are taunting me. But they weren't. It was me. But it does come with some real responsibility. And this email does remind me of that. It says, as you know, a verified badge tells people that your account is notable and authentic. And being part of this blue badge Twitter community comes with responsibility. And we hope you use it well. Brackets, serious voice. Be kind, lead by example, and tweet others how you want to be tweeted. It's very serious business, and I think there's a reason why I've been given this. I think that clearly they think that I can uphold the standards and improve their brand, and I'm fine to go with that, but I don't want to rub it in anybody's face. So this is the last we'll speak of it, okay?
I'm really happy for you, mate.
I believe
seriously,
you.
I'm really happy for you.
Thanks very much. I promise I won't let it change me as a person. I'll still be me. Anyway, more importantly, the Ipswich Town fixtures are out today. It's a landmark day in the calendar. It's the day the official starting gun gets fired on the new season. We can still decide whether we want to call it next season or this season when we write about it. That's something we will debate. But the fixtures are out. There's Morecambe at home first up. We'll talk through all the important ones now, but we'll start with you, Stu. What do you reckon? What's your overarching feeling now that we know how our lives are going to go down for the next 9 months?
It's a bit different for us, isn't it? We're having a look at where we've got to go and when, and how it sort of guides our entire lives for the next 9 months. I guess for everyone else out there, you've all got little individual situations where, you know, what games am I going to miss while I'm on holiday or at a wedding, or can I make that away trip that I've always wanted to do? So everyone has different things to look out for when they look at the fixture list. We always try and analyse it to within an inch of its life, because that's the fun thing to do at this time of year. But quite frankly, it doesn't mean a huge amount, does it? You play everybody twice, home and away, and we'll see what happens. But yeah, it's a bit of a fool's errand, as I said, trying to sort of make sense of it. But we'll give it a go anyway, because...
What about you? You've got a special trip on your birthday, haven't you?
Yeah, Bolton away. That'll be nice for me. It's nowhere else I'd rather be on my birthday in January. So yeah, what about you? Have you got a birthday game?
I never used to get birthday games with Ipswich because it would always fall on an international break in October. There's not a birthday day game as such this year, but the closest one for me is a home game with Shrewsbury. So that's 3 days before. That'll just kick off a festival of celebrations. Rossi, what about you? Have you got any landmarks in there? Birthday game? Anything else?
My birthday's in July, so normally it's a pre-season friendly against somebody.
What date in July?
12th of July. That's a Monday, so I think it's
Dartford.
Yeah, but starts at Dartford and then all sorts kicking off. Possibly a friendly at Bury Town on the Tuesday in there.
Yeah, standards. Yeah, take that.
Nothing else in there in terms of landmarks for you?
Not really. I think, the Cheltenham Town away day on a Tuesday looks. I'm pleased that's happened in August. So it's going to be at least warm still-ish in the evenings. I think if that was a December Tuesday night, I think we would be very not happy. But Yeah, there's a few away days. I think it's been kinder this year in terms of away days on a Tuesday. It's not that many. I know there's Doncaster and Rotherham and stuff, but nothing that really goes.
I looked back through that earlier, and there was 16, I think, a Tuesday night games in the league alone. So that's not even taking into account the cup games. That was the most hectic and relentless of seasons. Obviously, already truncated because of COVID. Then we had the games called off over Christmas that had to be rearranged. It was just non-stop, wasn't it? We were going to Fleetwood, Accrington, Hull, Sunderland, all on Tuesday nights, and not great for us, but more importantly, not great for the players, because I think people underestimate sometimes what that does. You know, the travel that adds to the fatigue of players sitting on coaches and getting back at 3-4 in the morning and stuff like that. And Paul Cook, towards the back end of the season, really had no time on the training pitch with his players at all between matches. So looking at it this time, it just feels just a little bit more spread out, and that there's going to be some proper gaps between games to fully prepare. As you say, the Tuesday night games are pretty kind. Cheltenham's as bad as it gets in August. So yeah, looking forward to it, and it's a decent start on paper, isn't it?
Particularly with the home game, Ross, that's what we all wanted, wasn't it? We've all got this image in our mind now of the sun shining, Portman Road stands full-ish, relatively full. Hopefully that works out the way that we want it. But to start off, what should be the real start of another new beginning for Ipswich Town, we wanted that to be at Portman Road, didn't we, regardless of the opponent?
Yeah, I think Morecambe, newly promoted. I'm going to steal Stu's line from his piece online. Check it out. It can be a banana skin. You never know what you're going to get with a promoted team. But yeah, it's always good to start the season at home. Sun will be shining at Portman Road. New dawn. The owners. Once again, I'm going to steal another line from you guys from your video you did on our YouTube channel. They probably weren't wanting Morecambe to be their first game at Portman Road, but it is what it is. At least it's at home, and I'm sure that's going to be bouncing Portman Road.
I've got this image of them being presented to the crowd and standing out in the middle of the centre circle prior to kick-off, having a little wave around and things like that. That should be great, shouldn't it? If that scenario paints itself on August 7th at home to Morecambe, Stu, that could be a really quite exciting day for the club. We just need a team on the pitch to not then let everybody down, because that's what's tended to happen on the big days with Ipswich in recent years.
Yeah, just need a team on the pitch full stop at the moment. Obviously, there's a bit of time now between now and the start of August, but the opening month in general, Morecambe we've talked about as the opener, Cheltenham as way in there as well, and then I think there's MK Dons, Wimbledon and Burton, who all finished bottom half of League One last season. So a real opportunity to get off to a good start. But Ipswich might still be kind of piecing this squad together. There'll be a lot more bodies in by the kickoff, no doubt about that. But whether they're all in and whether the key pieces of the jigsaw are in by that point, I don't know, because I'm pretty sure some deals are going to go right down to the wire. Does the window shut without checking end of the month in August this year? So
yeah,
I'm sure a lot of significant business will still be taking place at that point. There still might be some unanswered questions, and you hope that Ipswich are fit enough and have gelled enough and have kind of got the Paul Cook system ready to go in time to kind of take advantage of that opening start. And as Ross says, it can go one or two ways against promoted sides. Sometimes I think you're better off playing teams that have got relegated early doors that are still in a bit of disarray and confidence is low, whereas a team like Morecambe will be playing their first ever game of third tier football at Portman Road. This is a club that is used to playing in front of crowds of about 2,000. This is going to be an historic day for Morecambe Football Club, and they're going to be looking around Portman Road. And I'm sure, how often did we hear from Paul Cook and previous managers? This is their cup final when they come to somewhere like Portman Road. And I just hope that Ipswich can kind of rise above that pressure. The thing I'm most looking forward to is just having fans back. That's, put everything to one side. It was horrible last year. It was soulless, and I just can't wait. I don't know how many are going to be allowed in come August the 7th. You're hoping, at least the way things are heading, some. if not plenty. And however many it is, that's going to be electric, isn't it? With the new owners and the new era. Can't wait.
Yeah, should be great. Any other games to look out for? I'm looking forward to my first trip to the home of the Shrimps, to Morecambe. Very important, Shrimps, not Shrimpers. Which I can't even remember when that game is. I'm going to scroll and find it. February, you've nailed it. Excellent. End of February 26th. A trip to the Shrimps. I'm up for that. I've not been there before. Any new grounds in there for you guys?
I think that might be the only one for me.
Up
Who
the
else
Shrimps.
have we got come up? Morecambe, Cheltenham, and
Bolton and Cambridge, which you've definitely been to.
Yeah.
Stewie's frozen. Rossi, what about you?
Cambridge, I know we've been there before, but that'll be an interesting one. Is that our derby of the season? Because they're the closest sort of team. I don't know if we, class that as a derby. I'm sure Cambridge fans probably will. But, Saturday, October 16th for that one. And then I think it's pretty much a quick turnaround when we play them again. I think it's in, actually, no, tell a lie, it's 22nd of April when we face them. So, no, it's not a quick turnaround. But no, actually been an interesting one.
Yeah, there's obviously the key dates in there. Away on Boxing Day at Gillingham, home to Lincoln, New Year's Day. Easter's interesting with Wigan on Easter Monday, and prior to that, Rotherham on Good Friday. That could be really interesting. And then at home to Charlton on the final day of what looks to be a relatively tough run-in, Stu. But we've looked at run-ins in the past as being, there's been easy run-ins. One of them never got played. The other easy run-in was a little bit of a disaster.
The 0-0 fest.
Yeah, probably not worth looking ahead at run-ins just yet, because this league could shake out very differently to how we're actually looking at these teams right now, couldn't it?
Yeah. Before jumping ahead to that sort of run-in, which you're right, on paper, the Easter weekend, which is kind of moving weekend when things start to happen. Rotherham away, who I fully expect to be challenging again, because they seem to have the formula for bouncing back from League One, and Paul Warnes knows what he's doing there. And then an Easter Monday game against Wigan. Those Wigan games are certainly ones to look forward to, with the Cook versus Richardson dynamic. Weon Edwards having gone there, both clubs shopping in the same market. Both clubs have got new owners, so they could be promotion rivals possibly. And then to finish off against Crewe away, decent footballing side last season, although they've had a few players starting to depart. And then Charlton at home, again, finished last season really strongly, and I think they'll be in the mix. So that's an interesting run-in, but I think we may be getting ahead of ourselves to jump ahead to that. The little period in the season that I'm always most interested in is kind of October, November time. We've seen Ipswich start really well in seasons. Even, there was a season where I think they won the opening 5 under Mick McCarthy and faded away, and then certainly have started both the last 2 seasons well. It's that October, November time when you really start to see the character of a team and how they respond to that first setback. And when the pitches start to get a bit heavier and the weather turns, that's when the big boys kind of separate themselves, I think. And we know, obviously, the first time Ipswich have hit a bump in the road the last couple of seasons, the wheels have fallen off. There was those back-to-back defeats against Accrington and Rotherham in the first season, where they got a bit bullied by Rotherham. That was an eye-opener. And then last season, Lincoln was one of the defeats in there, wasn't it? I can't remember the other team. So that's kind of the end of October time. So and my eyes immediately went to the fixture list at end of October period this season. Ipswich go to Portsmouth on a Tuesday night, and then they host Fleetwood at home. So that has the potential to be another little bump in the road for Ipswich, and I'm sure there will be setbacks along the way, and you just hope that they can respond to them, because then there's that November period, which is when managers start to get under pressure, fans start to get a bit twitchy, and you start to see whether expectations meet reality. There's some tough old games in that November period. Sunderland away, Rotherham at home, Charlton coming up at the start of December. So that is the period of the season where it's make or break for me.
That's the time where we want Paul Cook and his players to find their big boy pants, pull them up, and be the bullies. They might even sign the bully in chief, Matt Crooks. As of yet, we'll get onto transfers and that kind of thing in a moment. But fixtures should be completed later today. We're recording this, full disclosure, before the Carabao Cup first round draw. That's being made at 3:40 p.m. today. Anyone want to have a little guess? Let's play profit. Let's Ross, who are Ipswich going to draw in round 1 of the Carabao Cup? Have a little stab.
So do you fancy Crawley or Stevenage? Because that's the normal ones we get. You always get them away from home or something, or at home. So one of those probably.
Which one?
Let's get our revenge against Crawley because they knocked us out of the Papa Johns. So.
Or let's. Yeah, please give me some of that. Stu, who's your prediction, Stu? Who are they drawing in Carabao Cup?
So it's north-south divide, is that correct?
Yep.
Is there a seeding system in place?
There's no seeding.
Okay. A couple of scenarios that I would quite like. Maybe a bit of a Mick McCarthy reunion with Cardiff. That could Mick coming back to Portman Road. That's hashtag narrative. Or maybe a little trip to Sutton. Sutton now in the Football League as well. New ground, not far away. For
the Aaron Drinan Memorial Shield, potentially. Give us a prediction, Stu. Mine's Wycombe Wanderers. I think they're going to draw Wycombe Wanderers very quickly. Who's it going to be? You've said who you want. Who's it actually going to be?
There's probably someone in League One that we're not bothered about. Do you know what I really don't want it to be is that, and it probably will happen, is that the opening game will be this cup game. All this excitement about the first home game being Morecambe, and now increasingly the season starts with the Carabao Cup first round fixture, because clubs, I think if both clubs agree, you can move it forward before that first game, and that doesn't feel like the curtain raiser to me. That always just feels like an extension of pre-season. We had it last year with Bristol Rovers, didn't we? But yeah, I hope it sits in that Tuesday slot after the first game.
I'm going to ask you one more time. Give me just okay. Thanks very much. Just shouldn't have to ask.
Think of
that
something
many
that would be really underwhelming from League One. What will be?
I'll be Gillingham, won't it? Gillingham as well. Playing him in the Papa Johns. Going to play him in the league twice, and now the Carabao Cup.
Nice segue, Ross. Papa John's Trophy. That draw will be completed today, but the interesting part of it's already happened. Gillingham, as you say, that's not the interesting part of it. Colchester United likely to be visiting Portman Road due to the rules in place. It looks like that one's probably going to be the home game. So that's hashtag narrative, isn't it? There's all of the narratives in there potentially.
Scoos, Chambers, Judge, Sears. Who have I forgot? Emir could end up there yet.
Smith, Gherkin, Noble, Eastman. There's 9.
I wonder how many of those will play. They're quite centred on developing the kids, and that's the tournament where the kids tend to play, don't they? So I don't know. I'm sure Mr. Chambers and co will be quite up for that game. I think they might be. I think there could be quite a strength. Yeah, there could be quite a push internally, I think, for that one to maybe not be. Maybe not quite so many kids. There's the rules in there, aren't there, where you have to have five starters from the previous or following league game in there. So you could certainly see a scenario where those guys would really push to play in that game. It would be nice in many ways if it was at Portman Road. Obviously, Scoos and Chambers both sort of exited in front of an empty stand, didn't they? They could at least maybe get the round of applause they would deserve that day before going to battle against Ipswich, which whether it happens or not remains to be seen. But that'd be interesting, wouldn't it, Ross? I'd be fascinated to watch it. I think you'd find some very motivated players coming back to Portman Road. I'm
intrigued on what Paul Cook's going to do in the tournament. Will he play the kids, or will he actually, do you know what? It's an opportunity to go to Wembley here. So yeah, I'll be intrigued which first teamers will play against Cole, Scoos and co, Chambers and co. But yeah, I'd be very intrigued, and I'm sure they deserve that reception. I don't know. I'm sure there'll be more, fans in attendance for this game instead of, normal Papa John's Trophy games. Normally we get 2,000, 3,000, but I'm sure there'll be more fans just intrigued to see how they do play and to sort of say hello and goodbye as well.
Nice little Chambers fist pump to the top tier of the Cobbold stand once Colchester have secured their 2-0 win. It's an interesting point, Ross, about how Cook will treat these cups. But if he's slimming down his squad, he wants a squad of 22 players. We're not going to be in the position that we've seen with Ipswich in the past of just having a ridiculous amount of senior pros to play in these games. So I think it will be quite a stark choice between going with the first team or going with the proper kids. It's hard to say at this point, Stu, but what do you reckon?
I think he'll go stronger than we've had in the past for the FA Cup and the League Cup. Got no doubt about that. I think he's had some decent runs in both those competitions with previous clubs. Before, the trophy's a little bit different. I wonder if we'll see a smattering of the some of the young lads that impressed us so much for the under-18s last season with the run to the semi-finals of the Youth Cup. So I imagine it will be fairly mix and match for the trophy games, but probably stronger than we're used to for the other competitions. That's my prediction.
Don't spoil my fun. I'm still all in on this competition, by the way. Even we're not getting third year fatigue on the Papa John's trophy for me. I'm still all in on it. Before we move on from fixtures and fittings and those kind of things, any other fixtures business?
No other fixtures business. Christmas, we had the Christmas wiped out last year. And this year we've got 3 home games out of 4 over Christmas. Obviously Gillingham on Boxing Day, but 2 home games leading up to Christmas, a home game on New Year's Day. So lots of footballing fare over the festive period, which will be nice for everybody.
Ross, any other fixtures business?
You happy with Gillingham on Boxing Day? I'm always intrigued I don't mind an away day on Boxing Day, but sometimes it is nice just to pop down a Portland Road after, the Christmas dinner. But Gillingham isn't too far for Boxing Day. I know they try to schedule it so it's not a too far of a trip. I know we've had, QPR on Boxing Day a few times away at Loftus Road, but yeah, thankfully it's no
away one year, I think, didn't they? But that's fine by me. Could be a bit cold and wet in that open away end at Priestfield, couldn't it?
Yeah.
Last time fans were there from an Ipswich perspective, it was gloriously hot August day, wasn't it? I think might be a little bit different this time around.
Okay, we move on. We're recording this on Thursday. Saturday is fast approaching, and Saturday is the day that the Ipswich Town squad, or what is left of it, return for pre-season training. The starting gun's been fired. We are into the 2021-22 season, but it's going to look a little different up at Playford Road, as I'm sure many of you will have seen a story on our website this week and elsewhere also about a split in the squad. We kind of knew this was probably coming. We've talked about the Demolition Man, Paul Cook, and how he sees what he inherited at Ipswich and looking to move on from that. But he's if it wasn't clear enough already, Stu, news of how the squad is split heading into pre-season training makes it pretty clear just how many of these players still may well move on. Are you right to run us through that story?
Yeah, I think the players were contacted. What day are we on now? Thursday. So Tuesday, some written correspondence went out to all of the players, telling them that when they return for pre-season training on Saturday, which will be the usual sort of bleep tests and fitness tests and all that sort of stuff, that they are to report to 2 separate dressing rooms. There's a first team dressing room list and an under 23s dressing room list, and there are just 11 players on that first team dressing room list, who are the 2 new boys, Lee Evans and Wes Burns, and then you've got Thomas Holy, Kane Vincent-Young, Janoy Danassian, Luke Wolfenden, Enciala and Darba, Nolan, El Mazzuni and Norwood, which means there are quite a number of surprising names that have been demoted, bombed out, whatever phrase you want to use, to the under 23s. So there's a 31-man list, many of which are the new young pros, but amongst them will be Flynn Downs, Caden Jackson, Miles Kenlock, Teddy Bishop, Armando Dobra and Jack Lancaster. Interestingly, Aaron Drynan's not mentioned at all on either list. So read into that what you will. There was a line on the bottom of this letter that went out to the players that literally just said this could change at the manager's discretion. So is this a bit of a psychological challenge to some of those ones in the 23s to knuckle down and maybe a bit of a test to see how they respond to that? I don't know. I imagine a large number of them will move on. We understand Jackson's one that's been told he can move on. The Flynn Downs situation's a little bit more complicated by the fact that obviously he put in a transfer request last summer and Paul Cook's made it clear that he wants people that are fully committed. And I think, in an ideal world, they'd keep Flynn Downs. But if his head has been turned and he still thinks and wants to move up the chain, then I don't think Ipswich will stand in his way like they did before. And likewise, some of those 11 players on the first team list, I don't think that means it's set in stone that they're here to stay either. I think some of them is literally the case that Paul Cook won't have seen the likes of Donasian and El Mazounian and Darber, people who finished last season on loan. It's literally a case of, I just need to see what you're all about. So interesting stuff, isn't it? It's 11 players reporting back for first team training on the first day of the season.
Yeah, it's an interesting approach. How it pays off, we'll see. I hope that under 23 dressing room is big. That's going to have to be quite sizable to fit everybody in there. Ross, what do you make of this? There's obviously plenty to discuss. Maybe we could look at a bit more at the players that are with the under 23s, particularly those 6 mentioned there: Jackson, Bishop, Dobra, Downs, Kenlock, Lancaster. Any of those you're feeling disappointed if they aren't involved and do indeed move on?
I think maybe Jack, Lancaster, I know he's had his injury problems and stuff, but I'm shocked that he's in that. Jackson, I'm not surprised with. I feel like he's definitely 1 foot out the door already. I don't know if this has never happened, has it? Our football club has never happened at Ipswich Town before. Like the previous managers who's put loads of first teamers in the under 23s. It's normally, if they are going to be leaving the club, they still train with the first team and then they go when they go.
It's been precedent, I guess. Yeah. Sorry to interrupt. In terms of going back to the Roy Keane era when he fell out with various players and people like Ben Thatcher getting stuck in with the reserves, and obviously even more recently with Nolan and Jackson in there, but they tend to be sort of individual or small numbers of people punished within a season. But I don't think I've ever known a precedent like this for this to be the opening day of pre-season training and the sheer number of them. This is, I don't know if there'd be much of a precedent like this at any club, let alone Ipswich.
Mm. I think we have to be honest and say this probably didn't completely surprise us that it's come to this point. This is all quite in keeping with what we heard around the end of the season, isn't it, Stu? In terms of the story that we ran at that point, in the vast majority of these players being told, including some of those on the other list for what it's worth, being told they could move on. It's pretty clear now, if it wasn't already, that this is what Paul Cook wants to do. He wants to move on so many of these players.
Mm-hmm. It's funny, isn't it? You had all the comments from Paul Cook about Demolition Man, and then there was the players were released, and I think the response to that was, "Oh, I thought he was going to be Demolition Man. He's hardly cleared the decks there." And then slowly but surely, more have left, and now we're up to 18 first team players, including loanees from last season that have left. I think they contributed more than 50% of the league starts last season, and suddenly people I've just sensed the mood has started to change a little bit to, oh, hold on, this feels a little bit real now, and how many have we got left? And it's obviously exacerbated by the fact there's only 2 in the door so far, and those 2 came in early, and it's all gone a little bit quiet at the moment, and we're just hearing sort of Mark Ashton talking about lots of plates spinning and lots of irons in the fire. And there is plenty of time to go, and we discussed that the market is the way it is at the moment, and there might have to be a bit of patience here. But at the moment, I think everyone's just a little bit ultimately trusting the process, but naturally a little bit unnerved. And is there any surprises in there? Dobra would probably be the surprise for me. I thought he finished the season quite strongly. And for me, he showed a lot of the qualities that Paul Cook was asking for. And Paul Cook himself was talking about, he just looks like someone who wants to enjoy his football and has got that sort of street footballer vibe to him. And so for him to kind of be chucked in there was a little bit of a surprise to me. But I think quite a few of these will move on, won't they? I mean, you've done a story, Andy, on Lancaster.
Yeah, Jack Lancaster. I think there's been a lot of interest in him this summer, and per our story, there's every chance that he moves to Cambridge, which should be a good move for him. It's obviously League One football. They were promoted last season, so he's one that I could fully see being elsewhere next season. I think people like Kenlock, I think it's pretty clear that maybe it's time for him to move on. Bishop similar, Jackson very much so. Dobra may be slightly different potentially. I certainly hope so. And then Flynn Downs is its own situation, isn't it? We've reported previously interest from Barnsley there, and other Championship clubs we know are keen as well. Flynn Downs is an interesting one, isn't it, guys? Because clearly he's a player that on paper, and we talk about all this being on paper, that really any team should want.
I think so. Yeah, but as you both mentioned, last summer he handed in a transfer request. So, and he said Paul Cook wants players who are committed to the cause. And Downs unfortunately got that injury. I don't know if he's recovered from that injury properly yet. I'm sure he is, but I feel like he's going to have to really. I don't know if fans have turned on him or not. I don't know, but I think he will be a big loss if he does go, because I think he's a fantastic footballer. But I think, it's a long road now back for him to get back in this squad. And yeah, be very intrigued on what his situation happens.
Yeah,
what about
Sorry, Andy.
Go, Stu, go.
No, I think he'd be a big loss. I thought he was their standout player in the first season down in League One. I thought he was a big miss last season. Obviously, first few games missed by being sort of left out with the transfer request saga, then injured sort of on and off for much of the season after that. I think he's well suited. We talked about Dazelle maybe not being suited to League One football. Downs, I think is suited to Cook football. I think he's suited to League One football. I think he's an asset that they could have made a lot more money on if and when they get promoted to the Championship. And so you're looking now at losing him for not a great deal of money. If we were turning down bids of circa 1.6 million, we think, sort of last season from Palace, well, his price is going to have depreciated from then. He's a year further into his contract. He's had an injury hit campaign behind him. I just wonder whether what Ipswich's valuation of him is going to be met by clubs elsewhere. I'm sure that there'll be a bit of a standoff on that one, and my fear is that will rumble on, and you don't really want those situations kind of hanging over you as you go into the first few games. You kind of had it with Martin Waghorn going into the start of the season not that long ago, and I don't think that's particularly healthy. I mean, the other thing is that I think maybe that Premier League boat may have sailed for Flynn Downs. That was his kind of summer to make that move to a club like Palace. It's probably going to be Championship interest now. Barnsley, we know, are interested. There's other Championship clubs, but it's whether he now has got boosted ideas in his mind about what sort of club he's going to go to, and whether he's going to wait to see if other clubs come in, and whether that does happen. So I don't think this is a situation that's going to be resolved particularly quickly.
Particularly now, if he's going to be training with the under-23s, it could get quite ugly, couldn't it? Not just for him, but for other players in there. We know Ipswich have had big squads in the past, but they weren't full of players who were told you're not training with the first team, you're not involved. It has got the potential to get slightly ugly there. I would fear. Hopefully for everyone's sake, those players are either moved on or can push their way back in, and that they're not just left sitting around. What about the 11? We'll call them the 11. Sue's right. There's players in there that Cook hasn't seen. Donatian was obviously on loan at Fleetwood and could potentially have gone back there as part of the Burns deal, but he's going to get a chance just to show what he can do. And Darba was up at Ayr. Idris was on loan at Grimsby and subsequently injured, so he's not seen any of these guys.
Nolan as well, who obviously
Nolan,
injured pretty much within days of Cook arriving as well. So I think that's probably, rather than being a sort of a real stamp of approval for those players, this is a case of I've got to be fair to you and judge you with my own eyes. I mean, I don't think anyone can see, with the greatest respect, Corey and Darbo, Idris El Mazouni being key men next season. You would imagine that, you know, their next step would be a loan spell. Thomas Holy, we're pretty sure that both Holy and Cornell were told that they could move on this summer. That might just be a case of needing a goalkeeper to be involved in the sessions, because they haven't got another one through the door at the moment with Harry Wright and having moved on as well. So and Shibek as well. So I wouldn't read too much into the fact that Holy's been included in that. Really, I guess the ones that you could take as a stamp of approval would be Wolfenden and Norwood, who we both wondered whether there might be some question marks hanging over them at the back end of last season. But the fact that they're both included might say to me that they're very much in Paul Cook's plans going forwards.
I think the one that intrigues me the most, Ross, is out of that list, is aside from those two, is maybe Toto and Ciala, who had a good season last season. I think we discussed before. I probably would have given him my vote for the Player of the Year, but he was expecting to leave, and could well still leave. But he's on the list, and he's not out. He's not out of the door just yet. Do you see a role for him?
I think potentially. I think that is a position we need to really strengthen in, and we've got a lot of defenders at the moment. Looking at 11, there's pretty much most of it is defenders. Janoi, Wolfie, Enciala, and Darba. Vincent Young as well. As I said this before, this is more of a joke on what I'm saying here, but Toto, because he's Scouse. I think that's why they're keeping him about, him and Nolan, because they're Scouse, and they want to keep that sort of going on. So that's probably why.
James Norwood, crucially, Ross, is 30. Thoughts on that? Famously,
he's fine. 30's fine. It's when's he 31? Is he 31 before the season starts?
Relatively soon, I believe.
Wow. Well, if he doesn't win the bleep test, then possibly I'll have some words with Paul Cook and co. So,
maybe that's what this is. Maybe they've just whoever wins the bleep test will be allowed to stay. Maybe it's that. Maybe that's the way. That'd be quite fun, wouldn't it? I'd like to be.
He's not winning it, is he?
Yeah, probably. Quite possibly not.
No.
Norwood's going to come back in decent nick, isn't he? You had your interview with him the other day where he's talked about, I think he's gone away with a bit of fire in the belly to prove a few people wrong. Perhaps hasn't had the first two seasons that he or anyone else expected at Ipswich Town. A lot of that has been outside of his control with injury setbacks and everything. I don't think we've seen anywhere near the best of James Norwood yet. Someone who has historically not had many injuries in his career at all and scored lots of goals. And when he's been on the pitch, his goal scoring record's been good. So I'm looking forward to seeing Norwood back next season. I'm pleased that he's part of it. I think some proper competition up front that will keep him on his toes will be really healthy for him as well. So he's not feeling the real burden on his shoulders. Fitness is going to be an interesting one, actually, because we talked about the don't panic. There's still lots of time to get players in the door. But the longer the summer goes on with getting players in the door, you're missing out on real sort of opportunity for team bonding, which I think is massive under Paul Cook and is a big part of the pre-season tours he's had and stuff in the past. But B, fitness is huge for Paul Cook. The way his sides play, the intensity that they play at, he's made it pretty clear that pre-season is vital to get these players in the correct nick so that they're still performing when we get to those depths of winter that we talked about before. And that's where Ipswich have fallen short in previous seasons. So yes, there's a bit of time, but you don't want to miss out too much, because they might not be quite getting the same standards of pre-season elsewhere than they'll be expected to undertake here.
You mentioned being in decent nick. One thing that will not nick you is Manscaped products. Don't laugh. So it's time for a little word from our sponsors, because I forgot to mention it at the beginning. We are, of course, still sponsored by Manscaped, the best in men's below-the-waist grooming. Manscaped offer precision-engineered tools for the family jewels, which will not nick. Manscaped's trusted by over 2 million men worldwide. Join the movement for all your below-the-waist grooming needs and get 20% off and free delivery with the code KOA at manscaped.com. There. I'm verified. I've had my second jab today. I've fulfilled my sponsorship obligations. Get to talk to you. This is a wonderful day. We'll move on from sponsorship to transfers. This is normally at the top of the show, but it's so packed once again today that we're only getting to transfers now, 40 minutes in. 2 in the door so far, guys. Wes Burns and Lee Evans, as you were, as per the previous show on this. Are you any sort of worry starting to creep in now with you guys regarding the state of the market? By now, I think we all would have expected at least 1 or 2 more to come through the door by this point, wouldn't we?
Yeah, I'm always looking out on, League One transfers, and there's been a lot of, good business being made. A lot of free agents, of course, getting sorted. I don't think there's been many fees getting chucked about for players, so I ain't got to worry about that sort of thing. But some of the free agents, some players you may have heard of, may not heard of, but you're like thinking, oh, we could have maybe got that guy, maybe, or you think free agents are easy to sort, but as we said before, trust the process. Still, we're not got into July yet, but you'd thought maybe at least one more signing before that they start pre-season. But one thing I thought about the other day, I don't know if this is me just saying random stuff here, but do you think he'll invite a few players in for training and don't put it on a sheet or anywhere, but just invite just a few players who are free agents just to see what they are like and then maybe run the rule over them? Or is that me just saying random stuff now? Do you get what I mean?
Lists for pre-season games.
Yeah.
Possibly, if we're short of numbers and there's someone that you think's sort of not got a club and they want to have a look at, it's not impossible, is it? I think, like you say, that there is business going on in League One, but I look at the business that's gone on. I don't think there's loads of players in there that you're thinking, we've missed out on them. Yeah, Scott Twine is probably about as eye-catching as it's got, going to MK Dons was someone that people talked about, but I don't think there's loads in there that you're thinking we're missing the boat on these. The fear, obviously, is that by Ipswich setting their ambitions really high in the transfer market, which we know they are, they're looking at championship players, trying to persuade players perhaps to drop down and selling them the ambitious project here. I think you have to play a waiting game on those because, as we've said before, they're going to wait to see what else is out there and bide their time. And the fear is that by Ipswich getting trapped in that waiting game, you wait on options A and B, and by the time those have gone, then options C, D, and E have moved on as well, and that's where you can get yourself in a pickle. But right now, I think it's too early to be worrying about things. I had a little look back through sort of dates of looking at the successful clubs in League One and when their sort of the bulk of their transfer business came, and a good example was Wickham in 2019-20. They had, I think, when they came back to pre-season, single digits of players that were available. I mean, they were among relegation candidates, weren't they, going into that season? And then they signed one at the start of July, and looking at it, 11 players arrived after the 19th of July, and between then and the end of the window. And that's not uncommon. I mean, that's an extreme example, but looking back through Coventry and Rotherham that season, last season as well, obviously the dates don't quite align because the season started later, but this is still early in the transfer window. I think everyone needs to remind themselves of that.
It's probably important to say at this moment as well, Raheem Harper's still hanging in the air, isn't it? That's a deal that's still very much on for Ipswich. Understand the fee agreed and all sorts down the line with that one, but the delays coming at the West Brom end, they've got no manager, although it does sound like they're getting very close to Valerian Ismail now, and no sporting director who's ended up leaving as a result of all of the fallout of their management search as well. So that there's hold-ups in that deal, but that's one that we've expected for probably, we're talking 2 weeks now, Stu? 3? It's been there, isn't it?
Yeah, it must be. Yeah, it's been a little while. I've got a lovely little profile piece on him, sitting waiting in the system, ready to go when he signs. So he better sign, otherwise that's going to be a waste of time.
Yeah, he will hear about that if he doesn't.
My fear was someone like Appleton was going to get the job at West Brom and might put the brakes on that one. I don't know if Valerian is necessarily going to be coming in and pulling the rug out from under that. I might be wrong, but I think with it being so advanced, I'd be surprised if that one fell through now.
Yeah, maybe just a waiting game there. Mark Ashton's been speaking today actually, and of course was asked about transfers. He's expecting some fairly soon. He would be expecting some new faces. Sorry, obviously he's been quoted previously talking about 3, 4, 5, maybe even 6 sort of deals on sticks spinning as a plate. There's a couple specific ones to talk through. There's the goalkeeping situation. Benjamin Siegrist is a goalkeeper who we've all, let's be honest, we've all learned quite a bit about him over the last month. I'm not sure many people are going to boast having seen too much of him at Dundee United in recent seasons. But he's one that Ipswich very keen on. And Ben Amos as well at Charlton, Stu, who's a goalkeeper that you mentioned probably on the pod probably 2 weeks ago as well as being one that's on Ipswich's radar. They want a number one, don't they? And it looks to me like one of these two men could ultimately be that number one.
Yeah, could sign them both, and that might then free up the Thomas Holy exit situation there. I think they probably will end up trying to sign 2 goalkeepers. Ben Amos is out of contract at Charlton, was their first choice goalkeeper throughout the whole of last season. Ex-Manchester United youngster who was at Bolton previously, am I right in saying that?
Yep.
So, and Siegrist is someone that's had a fair bit of hype surrounding him. You know, one of the best goalkeepers up in Scotland by all accounts. Talking about fees in the region of £350,000. I think that sounds like that's a fairly active situation now that we're into kind of negotiations zone between the two clubs. There was talk about Celtic being in for him in January, and whether he was kind of waiting to see if that progressed. But goalkeeper situations hotting up. Haven't heard anything about a left back yet. Still, I don't think there's been a single name out there at the moment. And given that Kenlock is the only left back in the club and he's in the bomb squad at the moment, I wouldn't mind hearing a little bit more about a left back at some stage.
The only name that is out there, Stu, has been put out there by you as a joke, it was the Ian Matson, wasn't it? Was he on loan at Charlton last season?
Yeah.
That might just have to happen. That might be the one that's going to happen now.
That's a hot take. That's a punt. I wouldn't call it a joke, but yeah, that was just there's nothing backing that one up at all. But I think like I just keep saying, fullbacks are massive to Paul Cook's system, and that's a little strange that we haven't heard any. There hasn't been a single name from anywhere arrive at left back at the moment. Michael Jacobs is looking a bit further forward in the team. Is one that you did a story on, Andy?
Yeah, he's one that's known to Paul Cook. He was part of his Wigan teams, the one that won League One under him. Scored 12 goals that season. He's right-footed, but has played on the left. Can play behind the striker. Can play on the right, and I think he would fit really nicely into Cook's squad. Whether he's a starter, I don't know. But if you're going to want a small squad, having someone that can play any of those front 3 positions is perfect. So he could be one. Yeah, I think that one's one they've looked into quite seriously. He ended last season with hamstring and then knee trouble, which has not cleared up yet. So I think there's a feeling that one might be later into July if that one's going to happen. But he's a player we've seen before, isn't he, Stu? He's a front foot player. He can. I just think that versatility is going to be really important for Cook, because you can't have a small squad without having players that can play multiple positions.
No, I think in that front end of the pitch, the sort of the striker and the 3 support players, I'd be very surprised if there's 2 players for every position along there. When you're talking about having that tight-knit squad, that you tend to have a fair bit of versatility across those positions, and Jacobs ticks that box. On the face of it, is he 29 now?
Yeah.
Injury at the back end of last season. I'm not sure it's the one that's going to suddenly stick a few more 100 season tickets on, but he's trusted to Paul Cook, and I think Paul Cook trusting in his players and knowing, he talks a lot about the consistency of players and knowing I need to know exactly what I'm going to get from them week in, week out. And clearly Jacobs is someone that he feels that he has that with. So, the injury situation sort of clouds that one a little bit. But I think we all knew that he was going to go back in for 2 or 3 of his former players. We've already got Lee Evans through the door, and it wouldn't surprise me one bit if there's not at least a couple more of players that he's worked with before.
I think the injuries kind of only really bit him last season. This isn't a player that's had injury trouble going back several years or anything like that. And when, by all accounts, speaking to a few people that have watched Portsmouth regularly over the last season, he was only there a season. When he was on the field, he was brilliant for them. They won 10 of the 12 games that he started in League One, and he was really good for them. So the concern is the injuries. I think Portsmouth have that concern. Ipswich have that concern. So it's the reason Portsmouth are potentially entertaining the idea of allowing him to move on. And it's the reason that why Ipswich are maybe holding off on getting that done. So yeah, that could be one to maybe check in again, maybe in a couple of weeks is the kind of time frame that I was given on that one. Ross, are you with us?
I'm here. Sorry, my headphones died because I've got wireless headphones, so I had to quickly swap them out for another pair. So I'm back.
Seamlessly done. If Ipswich were to sign a player tomorrow, what position would you like him to play? Or today, or later today?
As Stu meant, a left back would be ideal because we haven't got a left back really at the club. Mars Kenlock. Does he count? Yes, he does, but it seems like he's very much out the door. Goalkeeper, obviously. I think the goalkeeper would have been nice, definitely, because we're getting linked with pretty much every goalkeeper who has been in League One, or the other guy from Dundee. But a goalkeeper or a left back would be nice.
Can I throw something into the mix? I've thrown this into the mix with Stu already this week in private, and he smiled. I'm gonna share this publicly, right? This is the hottest, unnecessarily hot of takes that surely will not happen, but I'm just gonna chuck it out there, and there are reasons for it. Okay, there's a free agent out there who's recently become a free agent, former Ipswich player, had a loan spell here, impressed a lot, widely regarded to be the best loan, technically the best loan, not necessarily the best impact, but technically the best loan player that Ipswich have ever had.
I think I know who you're talking about.
He's now Giovanni Dos Santos, right?
Yeah.
Is now a free agent at the age of 32. He's left Club America in Mexico. And on the face of it, that seems ridiculous, right? Surely can't happen. Why would he leave Mexico to come back to Ipswich? But hear me out, okay? There's some dots here. Giovanni Dos Santos is a former LA Galaxy player. Who lives in LA? Brett Johnson. Who watches the MLS games on a regular basis? Brett Johnson, Mark Detmer, Berke Bakai. Who will have seen him ripping up MLS? Who will know that he's a player that is loved at Ipswich? The ownership. So is this crazy?
I probably thought it was crazy when Mr. Drogba was lured over to Phoenix Rising. They do like to get a name that gets the people going. Would
this get the people going?
Yeah, definitely. I just don't see it happening. But
obviously not. It's the wildest of theories. I think his wages would be very, very high. But don't worry, I've thought of a scenario around that as well. Obviously, Ipswich are limited to spending 60% of their turnover on their playing staff in terms of wage this season. Get around that. Phoenix Rising sign him and loan him at a favourable rate, which means not only do Phoenix get their next marquee player at some point, some months of the year, but Ipswich Town do too. What do you think?
Happy. I'll take that.
I loved it. It's the hottest of hot takes. I heard this hot straight from your mouth on the phone the other. Yeah, my initial reaction was that's ridiculous. But the more you think about it, the more you can convince yourself.
So you're saying there's a chance. Just remember, if this wildest of takes comes to fruition, just remember where you hurt. Just remember who made it up. Completely made it up. Very similar style of player. We'll quickly move on to Ollie Hawkins, who has left Ipswich Town this week after just one season. He's gone to Mansfield for an undisclosed nominal fee. He was always one that was going to go, wasn't he, guys? How are we feeling about a year and 23 games of Ollie Hawkins at Ipswich Town?
Well, my hot take about him maybe staying on as an emergency backup centre back didn't date particularly well, did it?
None of our hot takes do, mate. They're all terrible. They never ever come off.
And that's what hot takes should be.
Exactly.
Nonsense. Yeah, I think Ross said in a video before his career at Ipswich is over before it ever really got off the ground. Scored at Crewe. I kind of remember. I think I best remember him for the game at Plymouth, where I think he came on and caused a bit of havoc and set up Caden Jackson down there. But although Paul Cook's going to be playing 4-2-3-1, I'm not sure a sort of a bona fide target man type like him was ever going to be the type of player that he wants. Someone maybe a little bit more mobile. So another player that has left Ipswich and dropped down a division.
Got some breaking news coming into the podcast. Semi-Ipswich Town related. A former Ipswich Town loanee has signed for Blackpool. It's not Gio dos Santos. Thank you for the WhatsApp, Ross. Callum Connolly, Stu, who is one that we did wonder, didn't we? There's obvious links to Paul Cook. He played under him at Wigan. Obviously, was a success here relatively at Ipswich, but he's off the market and he's in the Championship.
Yeah, this is another one then that highlights the dangers that we've talked about, where you kind of, if you set your targets high and then miss out on some of these players to the likes of Blackpool and others, that's the danger. But we want Ipswich to set their targets high, don't we? So by the very nature of it, some will slip through the net. I don't know how serious the interest in Callum Connolly got. He was certainly someone that they've talked about this summer. I know that much. It's someone that they spoke to people about Callum Connolly, but maybe it became pretty clear that he was his targets were set on going to the Championship. And I'm sure Mr. Garbutt has probably told him that it's a good place to be as well. So it's a shame that, because I think he would have been ideal. We talked a lot about how he would have ticked a number of boxes for Ipswich. This
is the danger, isn't it? Like you said, Stu, you're going to have to sell Ipswich something special if you're going to turn someone away from a Championship move to come here. If it's a straight choice between a 2-year deal in the Championship, which is what he's got, hopefully Blackpool stay up, so you can see that through. But it's quite the sales pitch you're going to have to put in there, isn't it, to try and wrestle somebody's chance of playing in the Championship away on the promise of you're going to win promotion with us from League One and play in the Championship next season. That's quite a sell.
It is, yeah, and I'm sure money will help as well. But for all the talk about the money that Ipswich have got behind them now, there's no getting away from the FFP constraints as well. So it's not like you can just chuck anything you want at it as well. So I'm sure the gap between what Ipswich can offer and what lower end of the Championship can offer isn't vast. But whether that project being sold come to a team that's going to be really pushing for promotion is enough to convince some of these players to come in, time will tell, won't it? Sonny Bradley's obviously one that they couldn't quite win that argument with, and I'm sure there'll be others that slip through the net. So I we just need one really good one in to we talked before about get the dominoes to start falling, because I think you start to do one or two, and then that gets the ball rolling, and I think that more than anything will attract players to come if they think, well, he's gone there, that's serious. I'm getting on this train.
So what you're saying is, if Brett, Mark Detmer, Berkay, of course, massive Galatasaray fan. Who played for Galatasaray? Gio dos Santos. What you're saying is push the boat out and get the Gio deal done, and then watch them come. That's what you're saying. Just to round off our little former Ipswich Town loanee section, Mark McGuinness has moved to the Championship. He signed a 3-year deal with Mick McCarthy's Cardiff. Mark McGuinness in the Championship, Ross? Did you see enough to think that's where he should be playing his football this season?
He's very much 50-50 with Town fans, I think. I think he had a few bright sparks, but there's times where you thought, oh, but he's very raw. This will be an opportunity for him to step out of his comfort zone. He's now not going to be at Arsenal. He's going to be a permanent Cardiff player. I think he will do well in the Championship, definitely under Mick McCarthy's management, and hopefully he'll have players around him that will help him up his game as well. I think him and Wolfenden wasn't the partnership that probably balanced out really well. So yeah, best of luck to him at Cardiff, and shall we have a reunion with Mick McCarthy when we play them in the Carabao Cup?
Well, hopefully that comes. I think I'm with McGuinness. I didn't think he was the right. I felt it strange when they signed him, and I certainly didn't think that he was the right partner for Luke Wolfenden. Saying that, had Ipswich gone and signed him on a 3-year contract this summer as a full-time player, not as a loanee, I'd have been really happy with that, because I think he's certainly got attribute. He's got all of the attributes. He's a good guy. He's got the right attitude. He's a proper defender. I just didn't think he was right as a loanee in the role he was being asked to play. I didn't think that was right. But I think he'll be a success potentially at Cardiff. He's got the right manager, hasn't he?
Yeah, 200 grand the fee for him, I'm told, in that sort of region. So Cardiff will have, whether he'll be a week in, week out starter for them, I'm sure they've kind of bought him with potential in mind. I think he's got those sort of ball playing, as much as he loves to go and win those towering headers. He's also got those ball playing attributes to him as well. We saw a couple of those nice skillful runs and Cruyff turns and things like that he can do. He's a leader as well. And I think in Mick McCarthy, he'll have someone that will help him kind of hone those attributes as a centre back. First and foremost, he'll want him to defend, and he'll almost turn him into a bit like the Christoph Berra warrior type who head it, kick it. There's a time to play, there's a time not to play, and I'm sure some of those raw edges will be rounded off. I think he could go on to have a decent career. I really do, and I think Andy's right. It was kind of right player, wrong time, kind of with Ipswich Town. Not necessarily. You don't really need to be rounding off a centre back's raw edges when you're trying to get yourself out the top end of League One necessarily. Certainly not when the rest of your team is pretty young as well. Head
it, kick it, scramble around on the floor looking for your own teeth. That's what Mick McCarthy wants from a centre back, isn't it? So Mark's going to have to be prepared to have some cosmetic work done on his smile if he's to be a success at Cardiff City. We wish him all the best. Right, we've been here an hour. It's packed once again, almost as packed as last week's podcast, which was jam packed. This one's very much Tiptree jam packed. Is there anything we've missed, guys? Anything I've missed? Anything you want to say?
I just want to say you've been on tip-top form today. You've got a new glow about you with your blue tick. There's an aura about you, a confidence. I like it.
It's just standards, mate. It's what it's all about, really. When you reach a certain level, you almost operate on autopilot, and that is very much where I feel like I am at the moment. I had some special sweets earlier, which have seen me through this podcast, an absolute treat. And I thank you for your kind words. I look forward to recommending you to my friends at Twitter for a blue tick yourself. Me and Mike Bacon, actually. Mike Bacon, a semi-regular on the pod, he's got a blue tick. He's had one ages, and he says that we can do all sorts of things now. There's like special clubs we can go to and things like that, which people like you don't even know about. So that's what I'm doing tonight. Jealous?
Not one bit.
It's nonsense. It's nonsense, isn't it? I'll see what I can do. I'll see if I can get you both a pass, like a guest, like a friends and family guest pass. You can come for like 2 hours, but you can't use like the certain areas of the club. but I can't end these podcasts. This is like
mate.
It's time to wrap it up, isn't it? I'm going to have to quickly scroll through my emails to find the Manscaped read again, because I am implored to tell you, and I'm not saying anything about making your Harry Kane longer or anything like that, because it's just not befitting of me. But you can get 20% off and free delivery with the code KOA at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free delivery at manscaped.com, just using the code KOA. I'm also going to say, please leave some reviews. We haven't had many reviews of late. They stroke the ego. They certainly stroke Mark Heath's ego, who will be back on Monday following his whiskey fueled adventure in Scotland. And follow, subscribe, watch our videos, read our articles, and stop talking, Andy. We'll see you next week.